Every entrepreneur aspiring or practicing should use a framework for your decision making. And that can be a simple list of like 3 or 4 questions that you ask yourself for everything. There's a million seemingly genius ideas that go through my head every day. Most of them are terrible ideas. But if I can ask myself the right questions, I think that begins to illuminate whether something is like, maybe this is a right now kind of thing.
Welcome to episode number 14 of the Uncommon Success Podcast.
Yes, hello and welcome to our community. We're so glad that you're tuning in today. My name is Cristi Coates, and I'm joined here by the one, the only, Brinly Foxall. And today, we're running the show.
We are. Andy can't say anything.
Nope.
This is like no topics off the table. It's going to get really crazy.
That's right. He's not even here at all. He's
Exactly.
out of state. And we decided that we didn't want to miss a beat, so we're taking over the episode without him, which, is really unfortunate for Andy because he loves this topic and he loves our guest, so he's really missing out.
He is missing out, but it's because you fired him, right?
We weren't going to say that publicly yet, but
Okay.
yes.
We'll keep
yes.
it on the DL.
Okay. All right, well, we're going to kick off this episode before I get fired. So first things first, I want to introduce our special guest today, Kyle Bickham. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Now, you've known my husband for many years, a lot of years. We were just talking pre-show about it's been years even since we've seen each other, let alone how long we've known each other before. So I just want to give you permission. Feel free to share any embarrassing stories, insights,
we were
on the
roommates
show.
for a little while, so I don't know if I'm going to break the bro code
Yeah.
for the podcast, but
Whatever you feel comfortable sharing, you have permission.
I'll keep that in my back pocket.
Okay, cool. Sounds great. All right. Well, he may never ask me to be on the show again, but while we're here, we're going to have a great episode. It's going to be fun. Before we introduce our topic and get into discussion, Brinly, why don't you tell us a little more about our guest?
Yes, I would absolutely love to. I'm excited to read this. Today, we're thrilled to spotlight Kyle Bickham. Kyle grew up in the Shreveport-Bossier City region. He graduated from LSU Shreveport in 2012 with a bachelor's degree in speech communication, where he competed on the national championship winning debate team. He then served as the connection pastor for Church at Red River and intern director for Community Renewal International. After getting married to his lovely wife, Haley, Kyle went on to pursue his MBA in entrepreneurship from Acton School of Business in Austin, Texas in 2016, where he learned from experience practicing entrepreneurs the skill it takes to launch, grow, and sell a successful business. In 2018, Kyle and Haley started the Modern Tot preschool in Dallas, Texas. They are currently serving over 120 families in East Dallas, Texas, to be exact, providing quality staff and an excellent environment where children play, explore, and grow to be active, long life learners. That's amazing.
Yes,
that's a lot of things.
So awesome.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction.
Yeah.
Well, reading your bio is super fun, but we want to hear more about you, your family. Tell us your story, who you are. Walk us through it all.
Yeah. First of all, I'm really fortunate to have grown up close to my family and a lot of extended family. So I grew up in the country off Old Plain Dealing Road between Benton and Plain Dealing. You know where that is? Yeah.
I
Kinda.
haven't even been that far north to know where that is. That's
like nowhere.
So far.
Yeah, well, it's living in Dallas. When I try to explain where I'm from, people's eyes glaze over. But I'm really proud of that because we grew up raising cows and riding horses, and I'm pretty far from that life now. But I learned from a group of great people just what it means to have integrity, what it means to show up for the people that love you and the people that you love, and I treasure that. Went to high school, starting in Benton, then went to Plain Dealing Academy, then Caddo Magnet, and then finally graduated from CE Bird. So moving around quite a bit, I felt a lot like a little bit of a loner, and kind of struggled to maintain long-term relationships. But what I did learn from that is like when you're on your own, you can still be okay. So I went to college for 1 year at LSU Baton Rouge, had a great time, but thought that it would behoove me to spend the rest of my college career in Shreveport with some more community that knew me and could hold me accountable. And so that's when I moved in with actually Andy and a group of other guys. We had a really great time, and I discovered a lot of community in the Shreveport-Bossier area through a summer camp staff that I got to work with for the better part of a decade, and the debate team that we mentioned earlier. And I learned what it meant to, again, similar to family. I mean, when you have people, when you've chosen the right people, you've been blessed with the right people, just being there for one another is huge. So yeah. I just grew a passion for not only interpersonal relationships, but how a community can be there to help each other and grow together. And I also met my wife, Haley, on that summer camp staff. We got married in 2013, and then right away had a son, Cohen, and he is almost 10 years old today. That's and awesome. I attribute a lot of also my professional journey, which we'll get into, to having him so soon. But it's incredible.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. We're going to get into even more detail as we get into questions and all that. So that was a great snapshot, and we'll go a little deeper.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm excited to dive into the topic of entrepreneurship. It's one of my favorite topics, obviously one of Andy's favorite topics. That's why we're doing it today, because he's not here.
Yes.
And we're having a lot of fun. But we want to hear so much insight on your experience and just your expertise in this.
Yes, as you know, Andy is very entrepreneurial minded, so we're both excited. Our world is surrounded by entrepreneurship, and we're excited to dive in. So, Brinly, why don't you kick us off with the first question?
Yes, I love having the first question. Okay, can you share your journey to becoming an entrepreneur? Like, what inspired you to start your own business?
Yeah, Shark Tank, honestly.
That's awesome.
Watching a lot of Shark Tank and just watching, that's something my father-in-law, every time we would visit him, that's what he would have on the TV. I mean, he was just streaming it, playing a recording of it. And, I grew up thinking that business was kind of like this, to be a businessman, was just to be a stiff, like a working stiff, and you're always serious, never having fun. And then I started to notice on shows like Stark Tank, on shows like Shark Tank, the variety of entrepreneurs that seemed to be able to make it work. And I also loved their authenticity. I saw people that were passionate about making a difference in the world and then building these communities and these organizations that could perpetually serve their market. And that was exciting to me, and I began to see myself in their shoes. As someone who is a bit of an idealist, I viewed entrepreneurship as a possible path to making ideas a reality. And so one of my partners on the debate team, actually John Mazer, he had just attended Acton School of Business, and he took me to coffee one day, and he was like, "Man, you've got to do this." And we had just had Cohen, and I was working for 2 nonprofits, which if you know anything about nonprofit work, you don't necessarily do it for the money.
Yep. But you were banking. No.
I was bankrolling, corrupt. Just kidding. The private jet I did have to sell. No, I mean, when you've got a young child at home, you begin quickly starting to think about things beyond just making rent, but also your future. And money, it's important, So I began to see a clear path start to unfold for me, that if I can learn entrepreneurship from practicing entrepreneurs at Acton, and then begin to build businesses, I could set my family's financial future up for success.
Yeah, that's great. So for the young entrepreneur or just getting started, what would you say are some key characteristics or traits that are just really important to build and develop to be successful?
I love that question. I mean, this is hard because I'm still getting started. I'm 6 years into my entrepreneurial journey, so there's still so much that I have to learn. But I can say that for what I've gone through so far to get me to where I am today, grit is by far the most important skill and character trait. And what I mean by that is the ability to, when something goes wrong, which it will,
Yep.
to learn from that either mistake that you made or thing that was beyond your control and keep going. And that's something I learned from my classmates. I learned a lot of that in debate too, but the ability to remain mentally tough and to keep going. So yeah, grit, I would say in business, when things go wrong, an angry customer, an angry employee, circumstances in the market that are beyond your control, i.e. COVID. Everyone on your team is looking for someone to tell them it's going to be okay. When you as the entrepreneur know, there's no way I can guarantee that it's going to be okay. But just the ability to remain calm and at least tell your team, I've got a plan and we're going to work through this together. I think that grit, super important.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We talked about going through hardships and things not going as planned. So 9 out of 10 businesses fail, and that can be challenging and hard for people to walk through. So how do you manage risk and uncertainty as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, every time I hear that statistic, I mean, it still gives me chills because, I mean, the idea of my business failing it's still terrifying. Even when everything's running super smoothly, even when I'm able to go, to the beach, for a week and not worry about it.
Right.
Still in the back of your mind is the fear, like everything could fall apart tomorrow and I don't know what I would do. All that to be said, we live in an uncertain world, and I just finished a book written by Annie Duke, and I recommend this for every aspiring entrepreneur and practicing entrepreneur. Annie Duke is a very successful world poker tour champion. She and her brother both. And the book is called Thinking in Bets. What she lines out at the very beginning of the book is that life is not chess, life is poker. And what she means by that is, in chess, you're playing a game that is very defined by, certain computational, if I move here, then you'll move there. In poker, especially Texas Hold'em, I love playing Texas Hold'em because the entire table has limited information, and you've got to make bets on what you think is going to happen. And the problem is, in poker, oftentimes I'll make a bad bet, but then I'll be rewarded for it. And then I'll think I was successful because of the right choices that I made. But if I can make the right choices over the right amount of time, chances are it's going to pan out well for me. So what I tell my team when things are especially uncertain is if we can buy ourselves time, I believe in us. I believe in our business. I believe we have a sound model, and I believe we're the right people. So when things get uncertain, I always try to buy time. If I've got a disgruntled customer, I try to buy myself, 48 hours. Let's have this conversation in 48 hours. Just because I think that time is the friend of quality. Yeah. And so with uncertainty, I would say that your best friend is time.
That's so good. Yeah. So when you've got uncertainty, you've got risk, you've got all these variables, and for an entrepreneur, you could see there's so many different routes to go, So I'm curious to know, and I'm sure our listeners are, what's your advice on how to know what idea is the right idea? Like, my husband Andy, he comes home with all these ideas, right? So how do you direct, a new entrepreneur on when do I pull the trigger? How much do I jump in? Just some of that advice.
Yeah, great question. I think every entrepreneur aspiring or practicing should use a framework for your decision making. And that can be a simple list of like 3 or 4 questions that you ask yourself for every deal, whether it's evaluating real estate deals, whether it's deciding like, am I going to quit my job and, move to LA and start this, modeling agency? There's a million seemingly genius ideas that go through my head every day. Most of them are terrible ideas, right? But if I can ask myself the right questions, I think that begins to illuminate whether something is like, maybe this is a right now kind of thing. And the first thing that I always start with is, are there customers for what I'm talking about. I think a big mistake that people make is the sort of if I build it, they will come mentality. I mean, I've got this great app for, Chinese food delivery specifically, like for gluten-free.
Yep.
Yeah, it goes, you can get really, really specific without asking the question, do customers actually want what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So I think if you can start there, and whether that's with a product that you're thinking of developing, whether it's an app, whether it's a real estate deal, how am I going to make this deal make money? The second question is, am I the person to do this right now?
Yeah.
And that can sound, a little bit harsh. I'm not going to go start an Apple Computers because I'm not a developer. That doesn't mean I couldn't become a software developer. But right now, am I that guy? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Okay, well, could I become that person? When could I become that person? So you start to ask questions about timing and, do I have a market and, can I make money with this? And I think that begins to illuminate, to give you some clarity.
Or maybe even partner with somebody. Who can I bring in
Yes.
if I don't have all the strengths for it?
That's exactly right. And that's what we did with the Modern Tot. Talk about uncommon. I never saw myself opening a preschool.
Yeah.
But, Haley's mom was a retiring teacher, and she brought alongside a friend who was also a retiring teacher, and they helped us put together an incredible curriculum. And, you talk about a scary thing where I had to delegate from day one because I didn't know anything about childcare. But what I did know is about leadership and about business and how to make it make money.
Yep.
And yeah, you're exactly right. Bringing in an expert when there's no way you could, and I don't even want to be the expert, right? In education, bringing in an expert that can give you a lot of value is key. You're absolutely right.
Good. And did you say you had a third one?
Yes, thank you for the reminder, Cristi. There is a third one, and that's timing. Is now the right time to move on what I'm talking about, what I'm thinking about?
Yeah.
Is the timing right in the market for this real estate deal? Is the timing right for the product that I'm developing? You can answer a lot of those questions with some market research, within a day a lot of times. But then also, is now the right time for me?
Yeah.
Okay, my wife just had a baby. I'm on paternity leave, she's on maternity leave, whatever. Is now the right time for both of us to quit our jobs and uproot our family? Probably not. Maybe for you. Only you can answer that. But
Right.
I think the mistake a lot of people make is thinking that everything is possible, which it is, but in a world of seemingly infinite possibilities, not everything is the right opportunity. And it's good to sift out the obvious ones first so you can begin to make a clear decision.
My husband says, just because you can doesn't mean you should. So I think that applies. That's good.
That's all good. That's all good. Well, I'm sure you've experienced setbacks in your career. Maybe. Okay. If you have.
No, I never fail.
Never fail. Well, imagine if you had. Can you discuss the significance of resilience and perseverance?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an unfortunate fact of life that things happen, and whether it's a mistake that you make, like we mentioned earlier, or something that's just beyond your control. Remaining, I think remaining positive, but then also learning from adversity is a key attribute. And I think it's something that we shelter children from a lot as sort of a helicopter parent. I see it a lot in culture where we want to shield our kids from, their mistakes or consequences from their mistakes or just adversity. And I think learning when something sort of waylays you, for example, when COVID hit, being in the childcare industry, you just ratcheted up the emotional, dial by about 1 million.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say I'm grateful for COVID, but I'm grateful for the adversity. Because, there were plenty of mistakes made along the way where, whether it's making the decision to open at the wrong time or remain open when we should have, closed. you're talking about sickness in people's lives. So in the Dallas area, you get a mix of opinions, both politically and just strategically on how to solve the problems in front of us through the pandemic. And, we're not here to debate that, but everybody seemed to have an opinion. And as the entrepreneur in the moment, it was my job to make opening and closing decisions, health decisions for how we were going to proceed as a business. And when you talk about resilience, I think that setting time aside to yourself to not only meditate, but also analyze your decisions. Take an inventory. What do you think worked? What do you think was right about your decision? What do you think was wrong about your decision? What can you... admitting where you think you might be wrong is such a great practice that I think just making time daily, sometimes multiple times a day when things were really crazy, really busy, helped me remain sane. And when someone's asking me why I'm making a decision, I've actually thought through that, and I'm willing to admit, hey, I might have been wrong. But, this goes back to the whole thinking in bets mentality. When I would ask myself, how much money would I bet on my decision in that moment? And I'm willing to stand behind that. I might be 90% sure, and I'm willing to admit, maybe 10%. And I think that frees up mental space to help you be more resilient.
Yeah, that's so good. So not letting failures and setbacks cripple you and shut you down, but step back, look at it, see it from, a different perspective. So in that light, how would you define success? Maybe when you first started, and now if there's a difference, how that definition has developed.
Yeah, that's I love that question. So, success can get tricky, and I think when I first started my journey, it was a dollar sign. Success is financial freedom. I just want the ability to never work again.
Amen.
I want to be able to buy whatever I want.
Don't we all?
There's nothing wrong, with that as a goal. But the problem is, what happens when you don't hit that? And what happens when it looks beyond your reach for the foreseeable future? Does that mean that you're not a success? I don't think so. So, going through adversity and just getting older, and as my kids get older, and having started, jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai a few years ago, I have had to change my goal from, in jiu-jitsu, I'm not there to get a blue belt. I'm just there to learn. Because if I make it my goal to, tap somebody that day, it's probably not going to happen. Dude, I'm a white belt. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
But does that mean that I was a failure that day? Absolutely not. So for me, I define success now as, am I on a path that I believe in, and am I moving forward in some way? Doesn't mean that, I faced a few setbacks today, or I made some mistakes, I might have to back up. But am I on a path that I believe in? And did I make some progress today? Did I spend 5 minutes practicing Spanish this morning or whatever? Am I on a track that I believe in? Then yeah, I'm successful. And what I love about that is that it frees me up from having to prove myself to anybody, right? Especially, I own a preschool. Does that make me an entrepreneur? Does that make me successful? When I get a little bit embarrassed when I say that to people, because it's what, you own a daycare? What are you talking about, dude? You're just in there changing diapers. That's so weird. But I actually am really, really proud of it, because it's I believe in our organization. I believe in what we've built, and I believe in the people that we have. And what's great is nobody gets to define success for me.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah, it is.
So you mentioned you have kids, you do jiu-jitsu, that kind of thing. So last week we talked about balance and living our life in balance. How should entrepreneurs balance ambition with realistic goal setting? So, and then all the things.
Yeah. Well, you may get some disagreement emails from this one. I actually don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in just life balance. I think expecting yourself, or at least for me, this is, it doesn't work for me to expect myself to have sort of work hours and then family hours and then just scheduled out chunks of time. When we were starting the Modern Tot, we had our new, 4-month-old sleeping on a little mat on the floor, while we were working all night to get the thing open. And our kids, they were there for us along the way. And my wife and I have had many heated business discussions, in the hallway or in the bathroom or whatever. So while I think that, sometimes business can kind of move in on your life, I think having boundaries is super important. So one of my boundaries is like, when I'm in the bedroom, do not talk to me about money. Do not talk. We'll talk. Here's where it does work, And so when we talk about balance and our ability to feel like just a semblance of sanity, and to just get fulfillment out of things that are important to us, I think boundaries are key. And the other thing is, we are not our accomplishments. And I think that deserves to be reiterated to especially high achieving people. I think it's great that you achieve incredible things. I think win the medals, earn the trophies, make the money. But for me, it's important to remember that's not who I am.
Yeah.
You could take all of that away and I'm still me. And when I think like that, I'm less inclined to work myself to the bone to either prove something to myself or somebody. And I begin to work out of a place of fulfillment and gratitude.
Yeah.
And I'm actually a really hard worker when I'm working that way.
Yeah.
But it begins to put things in perspective of like, here's what really matters. I'm going to spend time with my kids, today. I'm not working today because, what matters to me is not just achievement. Right?
Yeah, that's so good. So in light of defining success, entrepreneurship, what would you say are some common misconceptions, whether it's some that you've had from the beginning to now or just that you've heard from others?
Yeah, you might have some people disagree with this too. I think the number one misconception is the idea of passive income. And I think if you scroll through TikTok and see, I get the comparison bug sometimes. I see some dude on the beach, he's like, this, you could have this life too if you buy my course, right? I don't believe you. Maybe. The idea of passive income, and what I mean is like mailbox money, right? Like I don't work, and all I want to do is like not work, not put anything at risk, not do anything, but I want to take the reward. And I think, that you risk being incredibly selfish and ripping people off. If whatever you're thinking of doing, like that's your goal to start, I think you're mistaken because the odds of that happening are actually pretty low. But I also think you're running the risk of trying to manipulate people around you and ripping them off. Whereas if you make it your intent to create something of value, I look at entrepreneurship and just business in general as it's a trade of value. If you look at how can I create value, then the money's going to start, don't get me wrong, pay attention to your money, right?
Yeah.
But when you are naturally adding value to a market, it's amazing how the market rewards you for that. And so, can I go to the beach for a week and probably not worry about anything? Yeah. But that's because I've traded value, or I've created value, and I've taken the risk. I've risked my own career and resources and reputation. It's all tied to that. So, it's not for nothing.
Yeah.
And I think on the other side of the coin, though, I think another misconception that people have about entrepreneurship is I've got to be busy all the time. If I start a sandwich shop, I'm going to be in there making sandwiches all the time. And I see too many entrepreneurs who, whether they retired and then bought into a franchise, don't get me wrong, I respect the hustle, dude. But you don't want to retire and then buy a Papa John's and then spend the next 20 years of your life working 100 hours a week making pizzas.
Yeah.
Right? I don't even know if Papa John's is a franchise, and they are not a sponsor of this.
Yeah.
As we eat our Papa John's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're going to be busy when you start something. But I think the goal of an entrepreneur should be, how do I delegate this? How do I surround myself with people who know how to do this and do it well? And how do I get people that believe in my vision? They'll never believe as much as I do. They shouldn't. But how do I get them to believe enough to follow what I'm asking them to do it, to do, and to do it the way that I'm asking them to do it?
That's good.
That is so good. Well, in your opinion, what are the most valuable lessons that young entrepreneurs can learn from failure?
Well, if I were to ever fail, I would know, Brinly.
Of course, you've never failed. But you've probably known someone to fail.
Yeah, hypothetically, I know somebody that forgets appointments every now and then. It happens. No, I think, you're going to let people down. You're going to let yourself down, both in friendships, in relationships, in business for sure. And so I think for a young entrepreneur, and I know young Kyle, was terrified of failure, because you think, if I mess up, everyone's going to know I was a fraud the whole time. And I'm going to be so disappointed in myself, and I'm never going to try again. But what happens when you actually fail and there's some consequence behind it? I've made some very financially, bad mistakes that cost not only me, but other people. Okay, well, what you learn from that is, tomorrow still comes and you're probably still going to be alive. It's okay. It's like, when you're practicing martial arts, like if you get hit in the face, you learn like, all right, well, that's what it's like to get hit in the face. I'm not so afraid of it. Or I should be more afraid next time and not, not run my mouth. Like you learn actually what it feels like, and you're not so afraid of it. You can get more comfortable with like, okay, it's not the end of the world. The other thing that you learn from failure is what you're capable of. You learn what you're made of. I learned that, okay, if I fall on my back, look at that. I can get back up. Well, that's incredible. And I think especially for young entrepreneurs who maybe don't have the reps, or maybe don't have the know-how, they don't have the education or whatever, they don't have the network, failing on a sales call, you're afraid to make a sales call because what if they say no? Okay, well, then that person needs to be told no over and over and over. And then when you put the phone down, after the 100th phone call, go look in the mirror and look, you're still you.
Yeah.
It's fine. You're still alive, and you are capable of picking the phone back up. And I think that I gained a lot of self-respect from being told no, from failure, from adversity, and still realizing like, oh, I can still do this.
Yeah, that's great. So you gain so much just from experience, whether it's good or bad. You're moving forward, or maybe you took a step back. It's still something that you can gain from that. So we are a business and leadership podcast. So what are some golden nuggets that maybe aspiring entrepreneurs just, at the beginning of their journey, they really need to learn?
Yeah, they're crazy if they want to be an entrepreneur. No. No, it can be a really fun, it has been an incredibly fun, fulfilling experience so far. One nugget that has, this is our motto at the Modern Tot. And I tell this to my directors. We start the meeting this way, this is our motto, is stay curious. Stay curious. If I can go into whatever situation that life throws at me, whatever I think I might be interested in that day, if I can go into that situation curious and not judgmental, right? If I'm not rushing to conclusions, but actually asking questions, it's amazing what I can learn.
That's good.
And the thing is, if you've got a basic average level of intelligence, even below average, that's fine. Like, if you've got a brain, you can learn. That doesn't mean you can be the master of it, or the absolute best. You don't have to be the best, but if you can keep your mind open, you can learn anything. So with entrepreneurship, with putting together business models, I say learn that. It's a scary thing. I don't like working with spreadsheets. I was terrible at math going into business school. I can't believe they let me in, right? But then the more I remained curious and kind of scratched my head like, well, why does it work that way? Why does business valuation, why would I pay $3 million for this business? And being able to back that up with, some pretty solid math, it's important. So I would just say stay curious, and you'd be amazed what you can learn, right? And my father-in-law, who's also a business partner in the Modern Tot, we always joke like, when I don't know what to do, when I don't know what I should learn, when I'm kind of frustrated with myself or I'm down on myself, just go get in the truck and go for a drive. And it goes in with curiosity. Like, if you don't know where your next real estate deal is, if you don't know what the market's doing, you're gonna learn some things from like a consumer report or a market report. There's a lot that you can learn just by getting in the truck and going for a drive, man. Whether it's, learning more about yourself, but learning about your market. That's actually how we found the location for the Modern Tot. Is for, as soon as I moved to Dallas, I was like, I got to learn this city.
Yeah.
And so I would just spend every day for at least 2 hours, like just driving,
That's
just
awesome.
driving to learn the area. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be physically go get in the truck, but I just mean get moving, do something to go learn more than you knew that day.
That's great.
I love that. I love how you talked about learning something you didn't know. Get in the truck, take a break, go learn. We have some listeners right now that are thinking about starting a business. So what would you say is that first action step they should take in starting that business?
Yeah, I would, this may sound self-explanatory, but if you've got a great idea, no matter how far developed that is, ask for support. Give somebody who's close to you, and make sure it's somebody that you trust. Don't just give it to the person who you know is the most critical person in the world, but get it in front of other human beings and talk to them. I'm not talking about poll the crowd just to boost your ego, right? Because you can get yourself in trouble with that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But I think the human connection of this is going to get out of my head, and I'm going to talk to my dad about it. I'm going to talk to my friend about it. The more you start talking about what you're cooking up, you'd be amazed at once you start needing to raise money, once you need to find investors, once you need help on a certain project. If you've been floating it out there for, say, 6 months, hey, I'm working on this house flip. I've been looking at this house flip, right? And it finally went on the market, and I'm going to be first. If I've got 10 people who are high net worth people who might be investors on that property, guess what? They know about it because I've been talking about it the entire time. Well, suddenly it's a lot easier to find the capital that I need.
Yeah.
And so I would say just get in front of people and start talking about it. And
That's
they'll hold
great.
you accountable
Yeah.
too, right?
Yeah.
If
No
I tell
doubt.
my wife, no, I really want to do this, I'm doing it. And then two weeks later, I'm off it. She's like, hang on, you really believed in that. What happened?
So people are going to ask you about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like setting a weight loss goal or whatever. If I'm out there bragging at the Christmas party, no, next year this is my fitness goal. And then again, 2 months later, my buddy's like, dude, I haven't seen you in the gym.
Yep.
What are you doing? That accountability is super valuable. And I think the same is true for, a business that we're cooking up. Get out there and do it. If people can see that you really believe it, and it's a good deal, go do it, man.
And I feel like what you shared, just even before we started this discussion, just sharing your story about how important community is. That's so valuable to have your community. And they pour into, whether it's just feeling support and encouragement or ideas to bounce off of or resources. There's a lot of value in community. Well, we have had an excellent discussion. I know I'm going to be saving episode number, what is this one, 14?
Number 14.
Number 14. This is a golden one. Well, we're going to move into the next segment that we call rapid fire questions. We're going to throw out a question and sort of kind of the first thing that comes to your mind, just maybe 30 seconds or so. You're going to answer it, and it's going to be awesome, and we're going to be so excited. So, Brinly, why don't you start off with our first question?
All right. We're going to kick off the rapid fire questions. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right. All right, here we go. What do you love about this current season of life that you're in?
I think that my favorite thing is my relationship with my sons, especially my soon-to-be 10-year-old. The more he learns, the more he grows. The more he becomes my peer, and we're buddies. And we'll play Legend of Zelda together, and he's giving me tips, and I'm
awesome.
I love that he's my buddy. I'm not just his dad, but I can see a friendship forming, and that's really cool.
That's so cool.
That was really cool.
Okay, so what's something that you know now that you wish you knew when you were younger?
People are thinking about you and talking about you a lot less than you imagine.
Yeah.
So get out of your head. You're your own worst critic. You're saying things to yourself way worse than people are
Yeah.
thinking about you. So chill. They're probably not thinking about you.
That's good.
That is so good.
Very true.
Okay, who has invested in you the most over the years?
I would say my dad. I wouldn't have said this, until recently, but reflecting on how he really did believe in me and would ask me, what are you working on? Like, what are you doing next? And what do you think, even as a kid, what do you think you're going to be when you grow up? Every conversation we had. And I think knowing that I had somebody like that believed in me, that really helped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so you mentioned Thinking in Bets. Was that the name of that one book?
Yes.
Are there, I don't know if you want to do another shout out of that one, but are there other books that you believe would be beneficial for our audience?
Yeah, I've got like a top 3. Definitely Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. Go get it today. It's on Audible too. She reads it. It's great. Another one is, I think this is crucial. It's E-Myth, and I think it's E-Myth Revised by George, dang it, I forgot his last name. I'm going to have to Google
We'll
that.
find it. Yeah.
Yeah, E-Myth, that's crucial. What he goes into a lot in that is a lot of people think they're entrepreneurs, but they're actually just working for themselves, and they've created a job for themselves, and so it gives you a nice roadmap on like how to avoid the grind, the endless grind of owning a business, and actually make it an enterprise, make it a business that funds itself.
Very cool.
Yeah. And then 3 is the third one.
Don't forget number 3.
Don't forget it.
The third is called Fooled by Randomness, and I'm drawing a blank on who wrote that as well. But he discusses a lot of long-term investments. He's a big investment guru, and the just sort of nugget there is that if you give a good investment long enough time, it will prove itself to be true. But if you're looking for quick returns, you may not see that in even the best investments.
Okay, great.
That's so good. Well, what is next for you? If you're looking on the horizon, what goals do we have?
Well,
Our next steps.
I'm glad you asked, Brinly. So we are working on building a trampoline and indoor adventure park right across the street from our preschool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we've got a great building there. It's called Sky Park Adventure. We're in the early phases of permitting and fundraising there. So look to East Dallas soon for your birthday party needs.
Yes, I love it. That's so exciting.
That is
Very
exciting.
cool. Well, we've had such a great discussion, and I enjoyed our conversation. I've enjoyed learning more about your story and all your insights and advice, and there's a lot of very valuable information from that. So thank you. This has been, just a really great episode.
Thank you so much, Kyle, for being here and all of this amazing wisdom and insight. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. This was a great discussion. It was an honor to be here. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Yeah, and we did not get into any of Andy's embarrassing stories, so we'll have to have you come back for another episode.
Bum, bum,
And we'll get
bum.
Well, Kyle is going to stick around for a few minutes while we do some of our bonus fun discussion. So if you want to hear this discussion, then you could join our Patreon Inner Circle, as Brinly affectionately refers to as the Cool Kids Club.
Cool Kids Club.
So this is where you can get exclusive content from weekly VIP discussion questions and our guests to special topic discussions just for our Patreon members. So join us for only $7 a month on Patreon by going to patreon.com/The Uncommon Success Podcast. It's patreon.com/The Uncommon Success Podcast. It's also linked below in all of our platforms.
If they join today, will
Yes.
we get a super embarrassing story of Andy Coates in the
Pretty sure.
Patreon?
Yes. Yes.
Can we guarantee that?
You could bet on it.
Yeah, there
I
you
would
go.
say 90%.
For
90%.
today, only for $6.99. No, I'm kidding. I don't know how to change any of that. I'll give you a 1-cent rebate and an embarrassing story. But you can also follow us on all of our platforms, Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. So if you want to watch this, you can watch it on YouTube as you hang out, or you can listen to us. You can also join us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. So be sure to like, share, subscribe, and review. And please leave us comments because We want to hear what you have to say.
Yes, absolutely. So thanks again to our special guest, Kyle Bickham. And please join us next week. Andy will be back in the host chair, and he's going to have a very exciting topic and guest. And Andy never really gives away hints about our guest for the upcoming episodes, but he's not here. So I'm going to give a little sneak peek.
Let's go.
Yes. Next week, we're discussing what it's like navigating the world of college and professional sports, and we have a gold medalist and former WNBA All-Star on the podcast next week. So you don't want to miss it.
That's exciting. I'll bring my sportsmanship award, so we'll have something to talk about.
Yes, that's awesome. Perfect. You can compare all your accomplishments.
Yeah, exactly. Basically, I got the way to stick it out, Brinly. We'll have a lot of things in common, but it will be a very fun episode. We might get in a little bit of trouble for sharing all that information, but
Nah, I'm not worried about it.
me either. I mean, Andy shouldn't be taking any of this vacation time away anyway. He's had plenty of breaks.
I know. Seriously, like, who does that? Who takes breaks?
Exactly. Well, that's it for another episode. Thank you all for listening.
Yes. Have a wonderful week. See ya.
Thank you for joining us on the Uncommon Success Podcast, where your commitment to growth fuels our passion to create more content. Special thanks to our executive producer, Jess Camp, and our technical director, Stephen Posey. We're excited about our episode next week and hope you would tune in to join us as we work together to continue our journey towards success. See you next time. Have a great week.